What's up, Michigan fans, and welcome to the inaugural episode of BLEAV In Michigan podcast. I am Brandon Brown. You've seen me before. It's been a couple minutes since I've been in the podcast space, but I am super excited to kind of get this thing going again and be back in this space, have a voice, have a platform. And as you can see, I am joined now by former Michigan wide receiver Grant Perry, who has I'll say it, who has started a burgeoning media career. I think that's the goal anyway. We'll let Grant talk about that here in a couple minutes. But Grant, this is so cool being able to do this. I know when I reached out to you, I was like, dude, I've literally known you on some level since you were a pup, dude. You're 17, 18 years old. I started covering you as a recruit at Brother Rice. We were just saying before we started recording, it's been 10 years since your freshman year at Michigan.
Crazy.
So first of all, thank you so much for doing this, man. Welcome to the platform. Welcome to BLEAV. I know this is something that we had talked about going back a few months, and it just kind of didn't really work out until now. And we're here at the very beginning of June, so we've got a couple summer months to kind of get this thing figured out before fall camp starts and before the new season starts. So I'm pumped. I guess where's your head at as we get ready to launch this podcast thing, man, and we start kind of figuring some stuff out? And you are bringing a lot to the table, and that's part of what I'm really excited about.
Yeah, man. I mean, heads really kind of all over the place right now. It's whirling around trying to think of ideas, and obviously this is the introduction, so we're not going to get too far into the meat and bones. But just thinking about what I can bring to the table, right? Having some of that player perspective. Been in Schembechler Hall. Been coached under Sharon Moore, coached alongside him after I played. And, I know a lot of the guys on staff and not so many of the players anymore, as you said, 10 years since I've been a freshman. So, those guys are rotating out of there and in. But, just having that perspective of being around the building, getting, being able to have a pulse on what's going on and just being able to provide that. But right now, being outside the sport, having the opportunity to talk about it, talk about not just football, but basketball, what's going on at the University of Michigan, something that really, excited me. And when you hit me up, I'm like, man, this is a no-brainer. I think everybody and their mom, they like to talk about sports, or they chat about this, that, Yaxel, Lendeborg, committing. So having the opportunity to do it on a platform and, just get it out there, the Michigan fans, really excited about it.
There's no doubt. I am too. I'm pumped. I mean, like I said, I didn't think, when I was pulling up to Brother Rice and I'm talking to you and I'm talking to Alex Malzone with my little stupid phone out there, and I'm like, how's your recruiting process go? That we'd be sitting down to do a podcast now. But here we are, man. I'm excited about that. That's actually where I want to start. We're going to do an intro episode here. I've done this with BLEAV before. I did some stuff with Michigan and former player Thomas Gines. I also did some Lions coverage last year with Glover Quinn. So I've been on the platform. I'll be real quick about myself, but then we'll launch into your story a little bit. So I actually went to Central Michigan University, was a teacher and a coach for 8 years in South Carolina, coached football and basketball and taught middle school science, and then got an opportunity to move back to Michigan and start covering recruiting. And you were one of the first recruits I covered because I moved back to Michigan in 2014. You were a 2015 commit. And so that's kind of what got it started for me. And then over the last 10 years, I've been covering Michigan recruiting. I've done team coverage. I was a publisher at Sports Illustrated. So not to toot my own horn a little bit, but I've been doing this like 15 years now. I started a website in 2011, and that's how I got noticed and eventually moved back to Michigan in 2014 to do this for a job and to do it full time. So that's crazy to me too. Like, I've been doing this for 15 years. And like you said, the players that have shuffled through, I mean, like I said, you were one of the first recruits I covered, and you're a full-grown man out there now, dude. You're really doing it. You're doing the adult thing, right?
Yeah, you're approaching the territory when you're going to have somebody's son, that you've covered.
Yes,
you're approaching those waters.
Yes.
But that's cool. I mean, that having those full circle moments, like you said, being a part of 2014, 2015, when you really started to get into the covering of sports and football.
Mm-hmm.
You never would think that, like you said, you started off covering Brother Rice, you covered me, prospect Malzone, and then now we're doing a podcast together. So, I mean, that's really cool. And that just goes to show, what kind of that connection, of Michigan can do, right? Everyone, working together, with one common goal, excuse me.
Yeah, let's get into your story a little bit. That's the more interesting part. And again, you're the new co-host here on the podcast. Yeah, let's go right back to there. You started when Harbaugh started. You broke it down a little bit just to make sure I had my information correct. But you were a big time producer in the state of Michigan in terms of your stats and what you did at Brother Rice. I mean, we're going to get into that. I have a Grant Perry quiz coming up before we get into our actual Michigan topics. Grant didn't know about that until just now, but yeah, take me back to we don't need to spend a ton of time on it, but the recruiting process when Brady Hoke was there, then Harbaugh's hired in December, and then things really started to change for you in your recruiting process at the end of 2014, beginning of 2015.
Yeah, I mean, so like we hit on a little bit before we started. Started off, had great communications with Coach Hoke's staff and Jeff Heklinski, the receiver coach. Was going to those camps from freshman year of high school all the way to junior year of high school. Just trying to get offers, trying to get looks. Always had in the back of my heart like Michigan's the place I want to be. So from day one of high school, the goal was to go play at Michigan, find a way to get there, get a scholarship, become a guy. And that was really my main focus, really all throughout high school. Junior year, senior year, ended up, really, coming onto the scene, having a good year. Alex Malzone did a fantastic job facilitating the football at Brother Rice. And, the offer didn't come around from Michigan until, quite late when Coach Harbaugh took over. Ended up committing to Northwestern prior to that offer coming in. And, once Coach Harbaugh came around and, it was about a 10, 15-minute phone call. I just, about 7 minutes into that call, I was like already thinking, how am I going to decommit? How's that call going to go with, Coach Fitzgerald at Northwestern? So, it was a heck of a ride, enjoyed everything. And to be able to get to the University of Michigan, just a lifelong dream for sure.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. I mean, everybody who's been a fan of the sport has probably done it on the video game. I can't imagine doing it in real life where you're, like you said, and I know it didn't play out real well for Coach Fitzgerald at Northwestern, but I always liked him a lot when I'd go cover Big Ten Media Days, and he was very engaging guy and did a lot at Northwestern where that's pretty tough. It's a very, very good academic school. They don't recruit on the same level as a lot of the big time programs, but they had decent success there. I can't imagine how tough that call must have been and just kind of you're a kid, you're 17, 18 years old and you're trying to make this huge decision and dealing with these millionaire head coaches. Like that had to be kind of a crazy call.
Yeah, it was. And, Coach Fitzgerald, real, strong, tall dude, having been, gone to Northwestern and visited, you kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Well, this is a big, strong dude. Yeah. Nervous on this phone call. Obviously, it's a phone call. He's not there in person during it. But, it was more so I'm not upset. I'm disappointed, which was tough. But it's funny because Zach Allen, defensive end, I think Cardinals or Broncos he plays with now, ended up was committed to Northwestern, same class as me. He decommitted and went to Boston College right before I did. So I hit him up and, got a little advice and asked me how to go,
Gotcha.
What to say. And he kind of walked me through it and gave me the blueprint.
Gotcha. Harbaugh comes in. I mean, all the fanfare in the world. He's at the top of the coaching profession in both the NFL, really, and coming back to Michigan, his alma mater, and you scrambled a little bit because of when he got hired. I mean, back then, signing day was, I think, early February, first week of February, and you were committed to Northwestern, but the communication had been there, and he was kind of scrambling to put a class together a little bit, and that, I guess, probably benefited you, honestly, man. Like, he was looking for talent late in the cycle. Guys had been committed for a long time, and you had even been committed for a little while at that point. So yeah, what was that conversation like, and how did you feel when you're like, dang, I'm coming in with Harbaugh, like we're starting at the same time. Class is not that big, but I know your boy was there, Alex Malzone, Jack Dunaway. You already mentioned him as well. Just what was that like? Kind of finally, realizing that dream.
Yeah, man. I think back to this funny moment. Me and Dunaway, we spent a lot of time together at Brother Rice outside of school, hanging out. And when I got offered and committed, and it was finalized that I was going there. I mean, we watched this. It was like a 2-minute hype video of Coach Harbaugh coming to Michigan, but it was clipped in with Matthew McConaughey in that the Lincoln commercial.
Okay.
Sometimes you got to go back in order to go forward.
Okay.
And we were just so excited. Couldn't wait to get up there. And then, you see these articles come out, they're ranking the class, right? Who's going to perform, who's going to come out and do, X, Y, Z on day one, who's going to have a good camp, who has the potential to play. And that was my next motivation. When I came out, I was at the bottom. I obviously wasn't one of the highest recruits, ranking wise in the class. But that was just fuel, man. I saw that. I was like, okay, they don't expect me to do anything. Well, let me go show them wrong. And that really drove my freshman camp. Jake Butt was a big mentor that camp. He had a lot of good things to say. Just keep working hard. You're looking great in the summer. If you get open, you're going to play, man. But just the leading up to getting to Michigan, man, it was a dream come true. I remember it was a rainy day in June when I got up there for my first day, and I was so lost. Rode a bike around Ann Arbor, had no idea where I was going, but so happy to be there, man.
That's so cool. That's so cool. I'm sure over the course of these episodes, we'll get into more stuff and talk about your career, and you can give a lot of input and insight as to how it went and things like that. But I want to get into the Grant Perry quiz now. We'll kind of close out our little introduction section here, and then we'll get into a few topics before we put a bow on this first episode.
Okay.
You mentioned it. You mentioned that you weren't the highest rated recruit in the world. I mean, a modestly rated 3-star guy. Not ever the biggest on the field. I mean, maybe in high school the fastest or close to it, but certainly probably not when you got to Michigan. You kind of mentioned you had to show some people wrong and prove some people wrong. But at Brother Rice, I mean, the production was incredible. I think that's kind of what that is what puts you on the map as a recruit. So question number 1, Grant Perry. You have at least one. I only found one. There may be more, but I know of one for sure. State of Michigan football record for high school.
Okay.
Do you know what it is? What is the all-time Michigan high school record that you hold as a wide receiver at Brother Rice?
I want to say catches in a season.
Catches in a season is correct. For a bonus point, do you remember how many catches that was?
105?
105 catches as a senior in just 12 games, over 1,700 yards, and 20 touchdowns, dude. 20 touchdowns in one season, which I think was second all-time maybe in a season.
Yeah.
I don't know who the heck had more than that, but that's wild in high school.
Yeah, it might have been Drake Harris. He was another motivator for me. I was seeing his stats. I watched my junior year. I watched his senior year where he was playing St. Mary's at Ford Field, and he went off. And I'm like, man, I got to beat his numbers. So he was a driving force for my motivation in high school, but also with the catches. The reason why I think I knew that one was because I remember it was like an off-season 7-on-7, like practice at Farmington Hills Harrison, 4-way kind of 7-on-7 ordeal. And I looked at Malzone. I'm like, dude, I'm going to catch 100 passes this year. I like that. I will. And my coach at the time was like, he kind of laughed it off. He's like, okay, good luck. Like, we'll see. And then as the season went on, it was kind of hard not to find me, downfield. So that I think that's the reason why I kind of remember that one, just because I had a specific moment on the field where I was like, I'm going to go get that number. And there was some doubters, but we made it happen.
That's incredible. And I do remember covering you guys as a recruit, both you and Alex. Covering recruiting is tricky because sometimes, like, even some of the biggest name guys, like, you'll go to their high school game and I'm on the sidelines, I'm filming, and they just don't do much that day. I mean, usually big time recruits will produce and you'll get some good footage. There was no doubt I was getting Grant Perry footage. Like, you're catching 10, 15 balls a game. Like, I'm going to get some highlights of Grant out there on the field. So I definitely remember that season putting up those huge numbers. I remember thinking, like, I can't believe Brady Hook's not offering this guy. I don't understand it. Like, I just didn't get it. And then obviously when the coaching transition happened, Harbaugh pulled the trigger and you got to Michigan. So that was kind of the start of your 4-year career. And it was just 4 years. There was no redshirt season for Grant Perry. That's question number 2. How many catches did you have as a true freshman at the University of Michigan? Do you remember this number, Mr. Perry? It wasn't a lot, but like you said, you weren't expected to do much by a lot of people, and you came in and made some plays early on. So do you? And you have people also have to remember Michigan quarterbacks weren't exactly winging it around 40 times a game either.
Yeah, we went through a carousel quarterback for sure. I want to say 10.
10. A little under. You caught 14 balls as a true freshman. And again, I guess what was the mindset? I mean, you came in again, Harbaugh's first year. He likes to run the ball. You just mentioned you had some inconsistency at quarterback. Did you think, like, I'm going to play as a true freshman? I'm going to catch some passes. I'm going to make some plays and just kind of put my name out there.
Yeah, I think, once the summer workout started, player led, specifically, we, every evening we do routes on air, just players only. And then we do, self-administered 7-on-7 work. in one-on-ones versus, offense and defense. And I think my freshman summer, I really kind of gained some confidence, being able to, run routes on, Channing Stribling and Jordan Lewis and Jabril Peppers, guys like that, where I was getting open, catching the ball. And quarterbacks were looking my way too. So I was like, you know what, obviously the competition's a lot better and everyone's the best at their position, versus high school. But, I think getting in there in that summer really, really gave me a step, a step above the game there, just getting acclimated. And then just knowing the playbook too, that was another thing that you see a lot of freshmen struggle with, knowing where to be, how to line up. And it kind of mindset was just try to become a coach on the field, where you're so locked in, exactly what to do, where the coaches, it's a liability if they take you off the field. So that was kind of the mindset regarding the playbook.
Yeah, I can imagine that it had to be a lot coming in, but yeah, and not every freshman picks it up. I mean, you see that all the time, whether they're a big time recruit or not. It can be a struggle for some, but you came in pretty early and started making some plays. This number, I kind of want to get your opinion on it because frankly, I thought it was higher. I really did. Just kind of thinking back and watching you play, and again, being on the field as a true freshman and playing a lot of snaps over the course of your 4 seasons. And I hope this doesn't come off like I'm banging on your production at Michigan. I really don't. I really don't want that. How many
role player, baby? I knew my role, 11 personnel in the slot,
yeah,
when it comes, it comes.
How many career touchdown catches did you have at Michigan?
3.
It was 3. And like I said, just thinking back to watching you play and how much you did play, I would have guessed higher than that. But again, I mean, you had like Nico Collins is like one of the best receivers in the NFL right now, and he barely put stats up at mid. So like we need to keep things in perspective a little bit here. Style of offense, quarterback play, new system, all that stuff. But I actually thought it would have been higher than that. Just your perspective, you just gave some really good insight to it. You knew your role. You were out there blocking. You knew you were going to have to run the ball. Thoughts on your actual production of getting in the end zone while you were at Michigan?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you want to get in the end zone anytime you touch the ball. But I kind of just viewed my role as, because you get 11 personnel, which is three receivers, a running back, and a tight end, and that's usually where you get your smaller slot guy in, on the field. So, with that, it usually was, hey, we're trying to move the sticks, right? So my main focus is, hey, do everything in my power to move the sticks, catch the ball, and then worry about run after the catch after you catch the ball. The touchdowns obviously only 3, but I got to say one of them was in front of Michael Jordan and Derek Jeter in the whole game. So
I remember that game.
Add maybe one more just because that was pretty cool. Nah, but it was a good experience. And like you said, we had a lot of playmakers all around the field. Nico Collins, Donovan Peoples-Jones, which were 2 guys that were head over heels, way more athletic than I was. So the production is what it is. Had a great time doing it, but sure. It's tough to get in that end zone, man.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Like I said, I just if I hadn't looked it up, I would have probably guessed close to 10. I don't know. I know you played a lot. I know you were productive from the get-go, but yeah, that's hell, man. It's 3 more than I have, and I'd love to have one. Like you said, that Derek Jeter Michael Jordan game, I remember. It's so cool to me, even still, however many years later this is, that I have photos of those 2 guys in my own camera from being like 10 feet away. Yeah. I don't know what your guys' interaction was with those guys before the game or while they were there as, I guess, honorary captains, right? Harbaugh had him in for that, and that was during the Jordan brand transition, so he was around for that. And obviously, Jeter's a Michigan guy and a Jordan athlete as well. I didn't expect to talk about that, but yeah, did you get a chance to talk to those guys? Like, what was that like, having like icons like that around that game?
It's crazy, and I actually have a funny story about when Jordan came. It was almost like a president coming in, your building. I mean, he had 3 blacked out SUVs that did not park in the parking lot. They came in through the practice field, wrapped around, and drove in and parked in Schembechler or Al Glick Fieldhouse. So he parked on the field, and before he came into the meeting room, one of his PR people came in and said, "Hey guys, he doesn't own his own image. Like, he is a brand. He is the Jordan logo. So you guys can't take your own pictures of him. It's copyright, whatever it is." So everyone's sitting there like, "Oh darn." Prior to that, though, it was the Friday before Hawaii. And usually that Friday after we get our workout in and get a sweat in, we have chapel, and then we have a team meeting, and then we all get on the bus. my mind starts going, and I would go to chapel here and there, and get a good word in from Robbie Emery. But when Michael Jordan was coming, I was like, we're going to be in the team room, right? I want to be in a good spot for that picture because he's going to get a picture with us. So I go to chapel. I get to chapel early. I sit right in the middle, like first row, right in the middle. And then, chapel ends. Michael Jordan comes in, gives us his talk, and kind of threw a jab at Harbaugh at the end that kind of got all of us going.
Really?
Question. Jordan, it was about Jordan, the end of Jordan's career. And Harbaugh said something, and Jordan was like, well, I was a starter all my years. And kind of a jab at Harbaugh not being a starter all his NFL career towards the end. Which made us all laugh because, I mean, no one's ever really, given Coach Harbaugh any jabs like that. But when you're Michael Jordan, you can pretty much jab anyone.
Absolutely.
But anyway, so the team, he comes in, and then we go for a team photo. David Turnley's getting ready to line up everybody, and then he gets out a 23 jersey, and then he sits right in my lap. And I literally, I froze. I didn't know what to do. Like, am I allowed to put my arm around him? Like, so that was a pretty cool experience with Jordan. And I got some other funny ones too. I got a Tom Brady story, and I've met Derek Jeter, but nothing too personal with Jeter.
We'll have lots of time to get into those, and I'm excited to hear them. Like, I love stuff like that. Like, that's the stuff the average fan and even the media, like, we don't get to see that stuff. Like, that goes on behind closed doors. And you are right, man. If there's a civilian or a pedestrian out there, I mean, he's a world-class celebrity. I understand that's as close to a president or royalty. It's Michael Jordan, and that dude is going to do whatever. Parked on the field with the black SUVs inside Glick. I don't know. Did you ever see that ever again?
No, never. I've never seen anything like it. Probably won't ever see anything like that again.
That's wild.
It was pretty impressive.
That is wild. All right, you mentioned this a little bit too. You said littler slot guy. You knew your role, like, came in. That was your position. And I said it earlier too. Even in high school, you weren't the biggest dude on the field. I mean, and that's where we're going to go right here. What was your program height and weight your senior season? Program height and weight your senior year, because it did change a little bit over the 4 years you were there.
Yeah. I think I chunked up a little bit for my senior year. I think I went into hibernation and came out a little bit bigger. I'm going to say 6 feet on the height. I never put anything less than 6 feet. I can guarantee you that. And then for the weight, I'm going to say 195.
Dude, Grant Perry. I'll tell you that. 6 feet, 195 is exactly what it said in the program. Were those program heights, Grant, or were those legitimate? We got to get to the bottom of this. Like, what is it? Guys are listed at 6'4". They go to the combine, they're 6'1.5", stuff like this. Are we talking to a 5'9" Grant Perry, or a 6 foot pretty legit?
I plead the fifth. No, 5'11" is government issued. That's
okay. Fair enough.
That's what the government says, but in the programs, you go 6 feet just to mess up the scouting report for those other teams.
6 feet with the cleats. I mean, we'll take that. That's all day.
Absolutely.
That's all day long. All right. Last but not least, we talked about this a little bit too. A pretty small class, your class, as Harbaugh was coming in. He's scrambling a little bit. He's offering guys late. You were one of them. I remember Zach Gentry was a late flip. There were some other guys in that class that were kind of late additions to kind of fill. Karan Higdon was a late addition, if I remember correctly, another flip from Iowa. Do you remember who the highest rated recruit was in your class? And there, depending on where you look, it may have been different, but I think this was pretty much a consensus for your class. Do you remember who the highest rated recruit was in that group?
Was it Tyrone Wheatley?
It was not Tyrone Wheatley. I think he was third.
Third. Okay.
It was a fellow Michigander, if that helps at all.
Malzone?
It wasn't Malzone. Oh, this is a good one. I finally stumped him. I finally stumped Grant.
Okay, so Michigander. Who the hell came in with me that was ranked? Can you give me a position? Can you help me out here?
He was pretty versatile. He was viewed as a two-way player for some time, actually, in high school for sure. But even when he got to Michigan, there was some discussion about where he was going to play.
Zach?
Not Zach Gentry.
No.
He was highly rated as well. I'll say this: he didn't have the greatest tenure at Michigan. That was a little bit rocky. Maybe that helps a little bit. I don't know if he was kicked out of school, but he got in a little bit of trouble and did not finish at Michigan anyway.
This is a good question, man. You're stumping me.
I think you crushed it. You were 4 for 4 with ease throughout the first 4 questions. So I'm fine.
I'll take 80%. It wasn't Shelton Johnson, was it?
It was not. It was Brian Cole.
Oh, B. Cole.
Yes.
Yes.
Brian Cole, wide receiver DB. I mean, I was going to get into that. Was part of why I was curious about him a little bit. He was per 24/7 in the final rankings. He was a 4-star kid. He was the number 65 player in the country. And man, talk about another kid that I had fun watching. That dude was going to produce a highlight or two as well during high school. I mean, he did everything at Saginaw Heritage, a smaller school. He was in another league in high school in terms of his athleticism and just his overall ability. Again, he didn't have the best career at Michigan. He played a little bit early, but then some things happened, and it is what it is. But yeah, what do you remember about him? Because I think he was looked at as a receiver, but he also played some DB. I mean, were you guys in the same room? Like, he was from Michigan, the state of Michigan. So did you guys know each other coming in? Just real quick on that, as the highest rated recruit in that first class of Harbaugh's tenure.
Yeah, I mean, so when you especially if Michigan guys, being in high school, in Michigan and then going to the school, you usually see guys around in the camp circuit. B. Cole was a guy that I would see around in the camp circuit, and then definitely got a better chance to get to know him when he was at Michigan. One of the funniest guys that's ever been in a meeting room. During my time there, just always knew how to make somebody laugh. Crazy athletic, and I think part of the reason that it didn't necessarily work out how he wanted, and probably the Michigan faithful wanted, just some of the playbook stuff. It was a second language, and it took him a while to really get a grasp on it. But at the same time, they're flipping him defense, offense. So
yeah,
he's trying to learn two different things, and if you're trying to learn two different things, you're probably going to miss out on being good at one thing. So I think just the not knowing what he's going to play, trying to learn multiple things, I think that pushed him back a little bit. But amazing dude, so fun to be around. Like, you tell him to go do something, go dig out a safety, like he's going to do it. And I haven't even mentioned crazy athletic. I mean, truly a freak, kind of a downshift from Jabril Peppers, but I mean, just a freak athlete.
I would agree. I mean, watching him in high school, I was really excited about what he was going to do at Michigan, and he was a cool kid. He was funny. I got to know his dad a little bit. Great dad. I mean, I was really, really bummed out when it didn't work out for him at Michigan, because the upside was certainly there, and he seemed like a good kid too. I know he just kind of fell into some things that maybe he should know, but it is what it is. But yeah, Brian Cole, 4-star kid, number 65 overall, was the highest rated recruit in that first class of Grant Perry and Jim Harbaugh's first recruiting class at Michigan. All right. This is a decent segue into this, because the last college football video game was NCAA 2014, which means you just missed out. You just missed out on being on the video games. I wanted to just start right there. The new college football 26 game comes out in a little over a month. It drops on July 10th. Grant and I are both gamers. We kind of figured that out a little bit while we were getting ready for this podcast. He's a PlayStation guy. I'm an Xbox guy, but cross-platform this time, so there could be a little bit of an opportunity for Grant and I to kick something off and do a little streaming. Just want to throw that out there. We've kicked around some ideas, so we'll see what happens there. But just in general, man, like, I have to imagine growing up as a kid, like, everybody in their brother who has played that game has created themselves on there to play, and then you had an opportunity to actually play college football the year after the game is discontinued. Like, what was going on back then? Like, that had to be such a crushing blow.
Oh man, it was devastating. It was devastating. And then, a lot of guys that are really good at football then have a second opportunity with Madden. So some guys weren't as worried, but me, on the other hand, I'm sitting there like, man, I don't know how long this groin's going to hold up. I missed my opportunity, darn it. Like, I want some restitution. But no, it's definitely one of those goals where you're like, man, I can't wait. Like, I know I'm going to play college football. Like, I'm going to be in the game. And it's just such a cool, like, just, it's surreal. Like you said, it's just something that you look up at to as a kid. You're like, man, I want that to happen. I want to be in a game. It kind of immortalizes you a little bit, right? You're stuck in that year, and you're always going to be in that game. You're always going to be, that player on that team. So when that didn't happen, that was a real bummer. I got to say that sucked.
I can imagine. Well, if it makes you feel any better, at some point from 2014 to 2024 or 2025, I did download new rosters from the gaming community, and you were there. You were in there. I'm sure. I don't know if you did that or not, but
Oh, yeah.
but I saw that number. I saw that number 9 out there early on, and then you switched to 88. Is there a story there, Grant? Is there a story with the 9? Did Donovan Peoples-Jones come in and say, "Look here, I'm the number 1 receiver in the country. I'm taking your number"?
No, I mean, he didn't say that. No, I mean, and me and Donovan knew each other, prior
local
to
kids.
Coming in, and I told him, hey man, if you want it, come get it, like come work for it, come earn it. I'm not going to just hand it over. And he had a really good summer that year, and really put himself on the field in a number of ways. Punt returner, was a specialist, and played well on offense. So then I was like, you know what, it's have it, do your thing. I'll talk to Jake Butt. I'll get his approval on 88.
That's cool.
And so, yeah, that's kind of how that worked out.
I wondered about that because you were number 1 in high school and rocked the number 1. Again, the huge production at Brother Rice, the 9 as a freshman, which is a single-digit true freshman. That's cool. That's cool out of the gate, right? What led you to go to number 9? I mean, I know 1 is kind of like that's a storied number at Michigan. I think Brian Cole wore it for a little bit. He ended up switching his number. Yeah, I think later
Brian Cole,
on.
Koa Crawford wore it during my time there.
What was the idea behind number 9 when you came in?
There was no specific rhyme or reason. I think that was one of the few lower numbers available. I went in, like, I had always been a 1 or 11 guy growing up. And 11 is obviously
also retired
at Michigan. So when that was not on the table, and I'm not too picky. Like I'm not a guy that's like, I got to have this or I can't do my job. So when 9 was available, I was like, yeah, let's do it, man. It's, half yin yang kind of the opposite of 6. So, I rolled with it, and, it was me for 2 seasons.
For sure. That's pretty. I didn't think about that. You switched to 88 after Jake Butt left, and you said that he was a pretty good mentor to you coming in. So that's probably I'm sure he probably enjoyed that. What was that conversation like when you talked to Jake about switching to his number?
Yeah, I mean, and there's no like rule. You don't got to call a guy and say, "Hey, man, can I?"
It's
wear
not
your
quite
number?
Like the league. Yeah, a little different.
But I when the opportunity was presented with a few numbers, I was like, man, that 88, that's had some good run here at the University of Michigan. Most recently by my my buddy and former teammate Jake Butt. So I gave him a call. I was like, hey man, you approve if I rock the 88? He's like, man, do it proud, man. Go out there and bust your tail. And so that's kind of the how that started.
Very cool. Well, the new game does come out on the 10th of July. I'll be getting it. I've been a fan of that game since it started, literally back on, I think Sega Genesis was the college football 97 or something, which is, again, crazy how long that's been out. I think a lot of people are curious about Bryce Underwood. Obviously, tons of upside, tons of potential. He's a true freshman, though. You always wonder about that a little bit. What do you think Bryce Underwood will be rated as a true freshman on that game, and what do you think is fair? I don't know if you've seen him in person up close. I mean, he's got the size. You saw in the spring game. He's got the ability to just wing it all over the field. I'm kind of curious how that's going to look when that game drops.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I tried to do a little research before this. I wanted to see if there was any ratings that were released for this new game, and I couldn't find any concrete ones. But I mean, when you look at a guy like Bryce Underwood, right, 6'5", 200 plus pounds as a freshman who's got a cannon. He could be a 77 overall, but I mean, look back at last year. Alex Orji was almost a cheat code when that game first came out. I mean, he was a beast, big old, running quarterback that on the game could throw. But when you look at Bryce Underwood, the potential, having that number 1, behind your name as the prospect coming out of high school, I think that'll help him a little bit. I'd say I'd give him, I'd be surprised if it was below 82 to 84. I think he'll be in the 82, 84. But then again, for those first few weeks when the game comes out, there's some people that are just unstoppable no matter. Yeah. So I think he's going to be one of those guys. And he's one of those guys where even if he wasn't a college football player, you would be making a Bryce Underwood mold. Like that is the mold. 6'5", 200 plus pounds, can run and can throw. Like that's a creative player. So I think 82 to 84 is going to be my guess. We'll pin it down and see how accurate I am, but I think that's where I'd put him at.
I think you're spot on. For those who grew up playing the game like I did, and I think like you did as well, when you go through the recruiting classes, the top rated true freshmen coming in are usually like 82, 83, 84. Maybe you'll get an 85 once in a while. And you're right, man. I mean, Orji, I think, is listed as the third or fourth fastest quarterback on the game when you start. There's a dude at Vanderbilt that's faster.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of who else is like a real fast running quarterback on there. Oh, Jalen Milroe is pretty much a cheat code on that game. But Orji's right there in terms of speed as a quarterback. And I do expect Bryce Underwood to be rated pretty high, and I think he'll be the starter when the game comes out. That's another interesting thing, too. The game comes out before the season starts. So sometimes you've got guys starting that actually don't end up starting. Do you think Bryce Underwood is the starter from day one? I mean, he's part of this huge NIL movement. We've all seen that and tracked that course. He flipped from LSU very likely because NIL was a big part of it. I mean, you can't invest that kind of time, energy, effort, and money that you do nowadays in a guy and put him on the bench, right? Like, he's got to be the guy.
That's, I mean, yeah, the way that the shift in NIL and the collective and kids are getting paid to play now, it's kind of, hey, you got a $2 million asset. You want him on the field, right? You want him, producing, especially for what, you're paying him. But, I think Michigan also, kind of will trend in the direction of what's best for the team. Whether it's kind of how JJ McCarthy and Cade McNamara came out, where it was, hey, each is going to get some series, build your confidence. Let's both get you some run here early on. And then if one ends up taking it, hey, you're going to be the guy here moving forward. But if I had to guess, I think Bryce Underwood is day one starter. I think his potential and what he brings to the table as far as being able to throw the football, what you hear about his intellectual ability, picking up the playbook. I talked to JD Johnson, who helps with quarterbacks up there. I mean, he says he is like laser focused when it comes to learning the playbook. Like, there is not an ounce of amateurism isn't in him. Like, he is all business. And seeing him at spring practice, I actually called a couple of his high school games as well. He's all business. And when you talk to people that know him and are around him, he's never really trying to take that spotlight and shine it brighter on himself. It's always, he wants everyone to kind of eat, if you will. Like, he's trying to bring everyone else around him up. Really good leader. So I think with all that being said, I think, day one, I think when the ball's rolled out, I think he takes the first snap.
That is interesting that you mentioned that part of his reputation. I mean, as a just otherworldly talent, huge name, always in the spotlight at a place like Belleville. I mean, that's, Belleville's don't get me wrong, Belleville's a great program in recent years, but he was all about Belleville. He was all about his guys. He was all about his teammates. He's about trying to get his receivers involved. You'd see, I mean, he certainly had this persona, and he's like a celebrity already. I mean, he's done the Rich Eisen show. He's posted up with LeBron. I mean, like, this is crazy life for an 18-year-old kid. He's driving around in a Lambo. Like, I mean, it's wild. But as you said, he's remained pretty humble from what I don't know the kid. I mean, but on the surface, from afar, and from what you hear, he does have that mental makeup to be the guy as a true freshman, to be happy for his teammates, to be a worker, to want everybody else to eat, like you said. And I think that's big for a kid like that coming in, who's probably going to be the guy from day one. It seems like. Who else this year, Grant? I mean, and there's 100 guys on the roster. I mean, there's a bunch of places that you could go. There's some other new faces. I know a lot of people are excited about Justice Haynes, the running back from Alabama. Big wide receiver, Donovan McCauley, came over from Indiana. I mean, there's some guys to be pretty intrigued about, and we're kind of using the vehicle of the football game, the video game, to just talk about the season a little bit, some of the guys here. But, yeah, who else are you expecting to maybe that wasn't part of the team last year to make a big impact on the field this year? It could be one of those guys I mentioned, could be somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, I think, when you look at last year in the positions that could use a boost, especially if you stay on the offensive side, the receiver position in Donovan McCauley, and throw in Anthony Simpson. Is that his name, from UMass?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Throw him in there too. I mean, I think we need guys that go and get the football, reliable. Donovan McCauley adds height. He adds size, adds experience. Last year at Indiana, really didn't get much run, but the year prior had, really good numbers, and has shown that he can play the position at a high level. Anthony Simpson, kind of similar situation where he didn't play a lot last year, but the year prior in 23, put up good numbers and showed that he could be a playmaker from that slot. So I think those two guys offensively, if we want to have a chance to see somebody shine offensively, Bryce is going to need some help there on the perimeter. And so I think one of those guys, if not both, is going to have to step up and definitely help this team.
Yeah, you mentioned Anthony Simpson, 57 catches, 792 yards, and 3 touchdowns in 2023. Missed most of last year with injury, but yeah, that's a guy that you need some production out of. Samaj Morgan returns. Tyler Morris is gone now. Donovan McCauley, and then you've got a couple, true freshmen who might make a splash. I know everybody was pretty high on Andrew Marsh. But yeah, you're going to need some help there. Colston Loveland is gone. I mean, you're going to need somebody for Underwood or whoever the quarterback is to throw the ball to. So that'll be interesting. I think Michigan obviously will lean on the run. They've got 2 really, really good backs. But I'm excited to see what the offense does look like under Chip Lindsey. That was another part of the video game. Coaches are in the game this year. Sharon Moore will be in there. Chip Lindsey will be in there. Wink Martindale will be in there. I mean, so that's kind of a cool thing. It's kind of surprising that didn't happen earlier. They were always able to be in the game because they're paid employees, but this is the first time that the coaches will be in the game. I guess, what does Sharon Moore, the video game coach, bring to the table? And really, I want to talk about Chip Lindsey. I know that was one of the videos that you put out on Twitter some time ago. Just, thoughts on Sharon as the head coach and trying to continue what Michigan has built. There's a little bit of I don't want to say a black cloud over the program right now. We're just a couple days away from maybe some sort of a ruling, or we'll get into that at another time, I'm sure. But thoughts on Sharon Moore in year 2, and then also Chip Lindsey, man, the new OC, and what the expectations are there.
Yeah, I mean, Sharon Moore, I mean, he's got, it all played out here, in front of him. He's got some good prospects. Like you said, the dual-headed running back, I think they're going to lean heavy on that. I think the DNA stays the same, especially with, still questions at quarterback, right? Yeah, we have Bryce Underwood, but we don't have somebody that's been in our system and has been, has played with these guys during a season. So I think finding a good balance, out of your quarterback play with your run game, figuring out who your targets are on the perimeter is going to be a big deal for Sharon and Chip this year. But as far as Sharon being the guy leading the guys, I mean, he is a guy that everyone buys in on. He is a lead by example kind of guy. He's not a coach that is going to say something and then he wouldn't do it himself. He would throw himself right in the fire with you, grinding with you. Really good motivator as well. And I think in this new day and age where, everything's moving fast, players are, on 1-year deals, essentially, having a guy that's young, like Sharon Moore, that's played the sport, has played with elite athletes. I mean, this guy played with Adrian Peterson. He's been around the game. And he's seen it at a very high level. And I think he is the right guy in this direction that this program and this, this landscape of college sports is moving in. And then you look at his hire in Chip Lindsey, a guy that also I think is a trendsetter, like a guy that is following the trends of offense, right? Explosive plays are huge. How do we get the ball on the perimeter without, throwing the ball 30 yards downfield? How do we find, ways to get our tight ends involved? Marion Hampton last year at UNC had an unreal year. And I think he can do the same with Jordan Marshall and the running back there from Bama, Justin Haynes. So I think Chip Lindsey brings a little bit of that dynamicness where you're going to see Samaj Morgan, you're going to see Anthony Simpson get catches, get touches, get runs. But you're also going to see Donovan McCauley getting into the screen game. And then you can look back to the past 2 years with Chip Lindsey, their number 1 tight end was 3rd and 4th in catches for their team. So he's going to have to be a big guy, Martin Klein, and so on and so forth. So the tight end position is also going to be a big role for Chip Lindsey. But just like I said earlier, just finding the rhythm early on and not forcing the quarterback to do too much, letting the game come to him, working on the play action, and really setting up the runs with the pass, I think is going to be huge here early on.
Yeah, and also has a great track record with quarterbacks. If it's Bryce Underwood or if it is somebody else, he was coaching the quarterbacks and running the offense at North Carolina and helped Drake May become the number 3 pick in the NFL draft. So, I mean, yeah, certainly a lot of that's Drake May and his size and his talent and everything. But you got to be coached up. I mean, you got to be coached up and you got to be productive. And Chip Lindsey has a really good track record when it comes to that. And anytime there's a change in offensive philosophy, and you said it. I think running the ball will still be the DNA, but it's going to look different. I mean, there's going to be a lot of new wrinkles and a lot of new approaches with a new OC and a new play caller, and not to mention a new quarterback, new receiver, like a lot of new faces making plays for Michigan on the offensive side of the ball when they take the field this fall. I want to put a little bit of a bow on the football thing just for now. We're going to finish with some Ohio State stuff just because that's fun to do. And, it'll get them talking about it. But real quick, this isn't breaking news at this point, but since this is our first episode, I just want to touch on it a little bit. You mentioned his name very early on in the podcast when we talked about what we might bring up today. Yaxel Lendeborg, surprising, and it surprised me. I mean, everything that I had heard while he was at the NBA draft combine was that he was killing it. He was making his shots. He measured at a legitimate 6'9" in socks, 7'3" wingspan. I mean, this dude is, you talk about being built in a lab, like you talked about with Bryce Underwood. Here's another guy, phenomenal athlete, runs like a deer, can play above the rim, can score at all three levels. I'm like, that sucks, man. I'm like, Dusty May gets this pull out of the transfer portal, and we're not even ever going to get to see him in the maize and blue. And we are. He surprisingly pulled out of the draft, which is, I would have to think he looked at what happened with Dusty May and another versatile guy in Danny Wolf last year and said, like, I'm going to go do that. I'm going to show that I'm just as versatile as Danny Wolf, probably more athletic, longer. I'm going to be a high first round draft pick next year. And so we are going to get to see Yaxel Lendeborg play in Ann Arbor. Dusty May has done a phenomenal job in the recruiting, in the transfer portal, and the roster that he looks like he's about to trot out there with Lendeborg in the fold it's pretty impressive. And I know we're a long ways away from basketball, not even to football yet, but you got to be a little bit excited about what Dusty's doing on the hardwood.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Dusty, coming off the season that he just had. I mean, from what transpired 2 years ago in Michigan basketball, we're collecting trophies the following year. I mean,
yeah,
you'd be surprised if you were told that prior to the season. But the whole Yaxel thing. I mean, how many times is it that Michigan gets a look at a prospect, like you said, and then it just doesn't work out, right?
Yeah, that's happened a lot with basketball. You're right, man.
Or he just, he goes to a different school, or one of the blue bloods comes in and drops a bigger bag. So having him come back, I mean, that's bringing a lot of excitement, to the fan base, right? Because how do you elevate yourself from what was a great season last year, right? 16 run, you win the Big Ten conference tournament in your first year, right? So expectations are kind of skyrocketing, right? So what does Dusty May do? He brings and gets Yaxel Lendeborg, brings him in, beats the NBA draft for him, which, I mean, like, how do you do that? And you got to, credit NIL and the collective for really assisting in that. But then again, too, you look at who else he's bringing in. Morez Johnson is a guy that excites a lot of people with his play style, his physicality. A guy that's going to be able to protect that rim, work on, the pick and roll and be able to catch that ball off the roll and put it down and punish it at the rim. And then you bring in a center, right? We lost Vlad Golden. You bring in Ade Amara, it's Vlad Golden 7'1". Can we upgrade? It's tough. Let's bring in Ade Amara, right? 7'4". Are you kidding me? And then, prior to that, you go watch the film. You're like, all right, he's 7'4". Probably going to move a little stiff, probably not, loosen the hip, but you go watch it, man. And this kid is athletic. He does not look like he looks 7'4", but he doesn't move like someone you would think was 7'4". So that's really exciting. And then you got Elliot Cadeau coming in at the point guard position, which, brings some really good experience. And I saw something that someone said, trying to play point guard at UNC and then coming to play at Michigan is going to be a breeze, right? It's going to be, just a lot easier, a lot less stress. That is, UNC is the pinnacle of college basketball, one of them. So him being able to come here with Dusty May is going to be interesting. And I think, I think the question really this year is going to be, what does that backcourt look like, at the point guard position?
He's got a lot of options. That's what I was looking for. I saw a potential lineup with potential starters and then backups, and it's a bunch of Roddy Gale's back, Will Chatter's back, Kaysen is back. I mean, you've got guys that have played at Michigan a little bit already too, who have a year under Dusty May's system under their belt, and then you add a ton of talent with Cadeau, with Lendeborg, with his name is escaping me, the 5-star freshman McKinney. That's another. I mean, maybe he's a starter. I mean, 5-star kids usually play quite a bit.
McDonald's All-American, man.
Thank you.
He can hoop.
There's
Local
no doubt.
guy. So that's another one too that kind of just sliding under the radar, right? We're getting all these big prospects in the portal, and we got one of the best, point shooting guards coming in, straight out of Michigan here. So that's exciting to see. And then like as you said, LJ Carson really showed some flashes there late in the season last year. He's a guy who I can see if he's not a starter, coming off being an elite sixth type of man, sixth player coming in. Definitely see him as one of our more driving striker abilities to get inside of the paint, and cause some fouls and make some buckets inside the paint. But like you said, I mean, it's exciting. You got Trey McKinney coming, you Elliot Cadeau from UNC, LJ Carson staying, TJ Cheddar. There's a lot to go around, a lot to be excited about.
Yeah, there's no doubt, man. I mean, it's a good time. It's a good time to be a fan of Michigan basketball. Like you said, the year that he had last year was above and beyond what I think most people thought in year one. I remember thinking, like, and not to dwell on the way Juwan Howard finished his career, but you win 8 games, the lowest total in program history. I remember when Dusty May got hired, I'm thinking, like, double up. Win 16, you go to the portal. I was intrigued by Vlad Golden. I was intrigued by Danny Wolf, but you wonder how it's going to be in year one. You wonder how Dusty May is going to, and they won, 24, 25? They tripled up. So, and like you mentioned, the Sweet 16 run and winning the Big Ten tournament, like, just above and beyond what people thought would happen probably in year one, and now he's got a ton of momentum heading into year two. So super, super excited about that. All right, let's finish talking about the Buckeyes a little bit. I know that, they're national champs. It's whatever. Like, Michigan beat them again last year when they probably had no business doing that, and that's incredible. And it's now 4 years in a row. But Ohio State did go on to win the national championship. Doesn't seem like anybody cares that much, which I'm fine with. But some of the stuff that's happened recently with Ohio State, like, and I said this to you before we started recording, I'm like, you guys do realize you won the national title. Like, why are you so soft? Capital SOFT, like Eddie Murphy said in life. Capital T. The making it illegal to plant a flag on the field, like literally getting law enforcement involved because you couldn't handle it and they had to throw a fit and Jack Sawyer had a meltdown and whatever. And then now, like, it's a small thing, and it might not even be I know it's not a large portion of the fan base, but I see it because it's two worlds that I'm involved in. I follow Michigan football very closely, and I've been paying close attention to the video game coming out. On the video game trailer, it shows a freshman Bryce Underwood break a tackle from an Ohio State player, and part of their fan base is just up in arms. They're like, this slappy guy at EA Sports has Michigan doing this again, and it's just like, guys, can't you just enjoy the fact that you won it all last year? No, you've got to be crying and whining about something. It just kind of seems like it never ends. I guess the 4 years in a row it's really done something to that fan base, Grant. It's a sad thing to see.
We must be the Achilles heel on their happiness because you win a national title, and it's just not good enough, right? I mean, it's the off season too, so you got to find things to talk about.
Something, man.
Yeah, but like to your point about Bryce Underwood breaking that tackle, my defense saying, hey, guys, don't get up in arms, Ohio State, because at the end of the trailer, if you watch, Caleb Downs has a PBU in the end zone at Michigan Stadium. Yeah. So, like, hey, we threw a little, someone threw a little jab in there breaking a tackle, but they came back and helped you guys out with a PBU in the end zone. But there's always something, they're going to pick and prod at anything they can. And if it's the video game and an animation of something that's never happened before and they don't like it, they're going to say that they don't like it. That's for sure. Yeah. That's just the kind of the nature of the beast there, I think.
There's no doubt. No, it's fun and funny. And like, I will take shots when I think I need to, but like, hey, look, they're at the top of the mountain right now. It is what it is. Took the crown from Michigan, who won it the year before. So, yeah,
I think the root of the soreness or the anger is definitely the fact that we have the ability to say that we provided you as an Ohio State with that last step of motivation you needed to finish your season. So hey, you guys thought we were going to walk into the shoe and lay down and not play Michigan football. Well, hey, we came and we showed and we conquered. We essentially played without a quarterback. We rolled out there with 10 guys and ran that ball, played great defense, and that was the spark that they needed to go on and win a national title. Congratulations. Wish it ended differently from this perspective, but find happiness in something, man. Enjoy life,
I like that. I like that. Give credit to Michigan even when they win the title. That's good. That's a great spin. I like that. I like that a lot. Well, Grant, we got almost an hour in the books for the first episode. We were told by the powers that be that we wanted to be at least 15. I was like, I know we're going to go longer than that. I don't know how long. Well, an hour went by really quickly, and I think that was a phenomenal first episode. As I said at the beginning, I'm very excited about this. Super excited for people to tune in and listen to me and Grant chop it up as the summer draws on, and then when the football season arrives, hopefully we really got this thing humming along. The plan for now is to usually record on Mondays, and maybe that means the episode gets posted on Tuesday. I think typically we're going to record these in the evening just for this first one. We kind of made it work how we could. But we're going to do 2 episodes a week during the slow time. That's the plan. It might go back to 1. I guess we'll see how it goes and if there's enough to talk about. But then during the season, I really want to ramp it up. Hopefully I've got time for that. Hopefully Grant does as well. That's the plan. That's the goal. And we'll really get this thing rocking and rolling by the time the fall rolls around, man. Grant, awesome first episode. I feel good, man. I feel good about the vibe. Back and forth was solid.
Yeah.
We learned at least 5 great things about the former Wolverine, Grant Perry. And then, chopped it up a little bit about the team this year, the basketball program, and, a couple jabs at Ohio State. That's a strong first episode.
It's a strong start. I mean, especially in the offseason when there's not much to talk about, right? Like, imagine if Yaxel, hadn't, committed, or like he wasn't even involved in Michigan. We'd really be sitting here talking about those other guys like, hopefully we get back to the Sweet 16. But, like you said, I mean, slow time right now. We'll figure out the flow of the podcast. But I mean, as this summer winds down, as that fall comes around, man, I'm excited. The content's going to be there. We're going to have a lot of things to talk about. I'm sure we could do some breakdowns of some plays, what went on in the game, what happened,
absolutely
what went wrong, and all that stuff. So I'm pumped, man. Mine's flowing. I'm like a mad scientist right now, just like, all right, let's do this. So I'm excited.
Very, very excited as well. And I'm pumped for what Grant's going to bring to the table. Like I said, I've been covered him since he was just a young lad, and now he's a seasoned, grown adult with friends and former teammates and colleagues in the program at Michigan. I think that's invaluable for what he can bring to this podcast. You mentioned J.D. Johnson. You mentioned Jack Dunaway. Grant Newsome was part of your recruiting class. I mean, that's part of the lifeblood right there with that staff. So you got some recruiting stuff with Jack. You've got a position coach with Grant, one of the best young offensive line coaches in the country. Right? I think he's worthy of that title. And I'm excited to learn more about those guys and your relationship with them and what that brings to this podcast too. So thank you so much, everybody out there, for tuning in. We will be back again later this week. The plan, I think, is to record on Thursday night, which might mean the podcast posts live on Friday morning. We'll see how that goes again. Kind of stuff we're going to figure out as we go here through the off season, and then more episodes and more posting when the season comes around. So for myself and for Grant, thanks everybody out there for listening, and we'll be back later this week.